I'd love to thank the sponsor of this video, My Patriot Supply. It's clear. The unthinkable is here. The most trusted institutions now deceive us boldly every day. Something is clearly wrong. Time is short to become more self-reliant and secure the future of your family. Act today with My Patriot Supply. My Patriot Supply, the country's largest preparedness company, is more than equipped to stock your shelves. Their best-selling 3-month emergency food kit provides delicious breakfasts, lunches, dinners that last up to 25 years in storage. And right now you can get it for $200 off. You guys can get this at preparewithnatalie.com. That's preparewithnatalie.com. Muchachos y muchachas, what's going on, guys? I hope you are having a fabulous week. I am working on a different video at the very moment, but I thought that I would give you guys some sort of reactionary commentary video on a recent interview that Jesse Watters did with RFK Jr. RFK Jr. admitted on this interview that he had flown a certain jet that starts with an L and is owned or was owned by a guy with the name Jeffrey, that he flew this jet 2 times. And, you know, I wanted to give some commentary throughout because there are some opinions that I have, some questions and curiosities that I have about these events. So let's just jump right to it. Let's take a look at this interview, and I will just stop it throughout, and I will link the tweet that contains this if you want to watch this full on. But let's take a look at this because this is quite interesting to me. All right, so let's take a look.
You weren't ever on Jeffrey Epstein's jet, were you?
I was on Jeffrey Epstein's jet 2 times. I was on it in 1993, and I was on it and I went to Florida with my wife and 2 children.
Okay, so here's the first thing that I want to comment on. So RFK Jr. just said that he went, he rode this jet 2 times in 1993. Okay, now the thing that I have to mention is the name of this jet, right? We all know it as the certain name Express. It starts with an L. Right? If you guys have trouble, you guys can talk about it, chat about it in the comments, ask that question in the comments, but I obviously cannot, But anyway, it was called the, Express, starts with an L. And so it makes me wonder when it was known as that name, because that is a big clue to the activities that were happening on this vehicle, this air transport vehicle, right? And so what I can say is that 1993 is pretty early on. And so who knows if anybody knew it as that, or if there were any rumors of what Jeffrey was doing at that time at that certain year. So I do believe that there were some initial things that were going on in the background that I wouldn't necessarily think that everybody knew about, like Jeffrey visiting some college and buying like this, I think it was like a New Mexico college property or something like that, like on college campus, something. It was like to that extent. Anyway, there were some things that were happening that I personally wouldn't think that everybody would know, because number one, technology was completely different in the 90s, right? We didn't have the mobilization of the internet and the socialization as easy as we do now. So who would know, right? I'm going to continue playing this, and I'm going to give you guys some additional thoughts and opinions.
To visit my mom over Easter. My wife had some kind of relationship with Glenn as well, and they offered us a ride to Palm Beach.
Okay, did you see that? Did you see Jesse Watters' expression? Okay. This whole interview, by the way, I was a bit shocked about. I'll be honest with you. I can't be shocked a lot too much nowadays because, everything kind of goes. So it's kind of hard to shock me. But this, I will say, admittingly, did kind of shock me a bit. That, whoa, okay, you knew him too. And I know Trump knew him as well. I get it. And that also brings me to a point as well. So he just said, and my wife knew Glenn, right? And she had some sort of relationship with her and all these things. And what I have to say to that is that rich people did run in these close circles, especially these, like these upper echelon political elites, these billionaires, maybe some of the most super of the superstars, right? These people had to have rubbed elbows at one point, okay? And a lot of people will always point, as an example, will point to Trump and say, like, well, you said there's a video of him going around and with the Jeffrey, and they were pointing at these things, right? And the thing is, people don't take into account in that example that he was actually one to work with authorities to comply with authorities and give them information that would lead to this whole thing coming to the surface, right? So with that being said, and I'm not saying that this is what it is, I'm just saying we don't know the full truth of what the heck was happening at that time. I think it is important, and I think it is something good to consider that he is being very transparent about it, which a lot of people are not. And we'll hear a little bit more about that on that line about transparency. He's being transparent. Like, look, Glenn had a relationship with my wife, but at the same time, looking on the other side, it just makes me wonder, what the wife knew, what his wife knew, and if there were any whispers, if there was any inclination of knowing of what type of operations were being had by that group of people, right? So that's the thing. Did they know the name? Was the name of that jet known at that time in 1993 as that? And if so, were the other things that were the other activities that were happening by the jet also known as well? So that's the thing. And it makes me wonder what type of, like, was this were they friends, like him and his wife and Glenn? Did they go shopping together? Did they go to events together? What type of relationship was it? So he said some type of relationship. Maybe he doesn't want to disclose exactly what they were, friends or what type of friends they were orbiting around. I don't know. I just think it's interesting to consider that. I'm going to comment a little bit more on that thought.
So I went then, and on another occasion, I flew again with my family, with I think 4 of my children, and Mary, my wife, to Rapid City, South Dakota, to go fossil hunting for a weekend. And
okay. Fossil hunting. Okay, so fossil hunting, I had to look this up. Fossil hunting, I just want to make sure that it is what I thought it was. Because when I think fossil hunting, I'm thinking like old animals, ancient animal bones, these things, fossil collecting, fossil hunting. It says it's a collection of fossils, scientific study, hobby, or profit. Fossil collecting as practiced by amateurs is the predecessor of modern paleontology. I'm also going to look up South Dakota, because he said they were fossil hunting in South Dakota. And I'm just saying it because I don't know. Dakota. Come on, internet. Gosh, every time I stream, dude, I can't look something else. South Dakota fossil hunting. Fossil hunting. I don't know if that's if that is known in South Dakota to fossil hunt either. So let me copy this URL here. Come here. All right. So let's go here and let's look at fossil hunting in South Dakota. Okay, so if you are looking to discover fossils, the best site for South Dakota fossil hunting is the Badlands National Park. Okay, so Badlands is there. Okay, so it does look like there is some fossil hunting in South Dakota. I just don't know. This is why I'm looking it up in front of you guys. So it looks to be that there is substantial, support geographically that in South Dakota there is fossil hunting. I just didn't know that would have been a pastime for Jeffrey. So that's interesting.
But but otherwise, I was never on his jet alone. I've been very open about this from the beginning. This was in '93, so it was 30 years ago. It was before anybody knew about Jeffrey Epstein's, his nefarious issues. And I agree with you that all of this information should be released.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of back up just a tad here. Okay. So I like what he says, that it was 30 years ago, it was in 1993. And here's the thing. I just want to, I guess, put it into perspective for you guys, that this in 1993, once again, I mentioned it, that this technology was not the same. We did not have social media. We didn't have internet mobilization. We did not have socialization the way we do today. It was all in person and through an actual cord telephone. Like, you needed a cord telephone, right? It was through the media, which was obviously, as we know, the media was a close circle, right? So that's the way I'm going to put it. And they said what they wanted to say, not necessarily what the public knows to be. At least we can say that in 2023, 2024. So what I'm trying to say here is that the way that we social, and I can't believe that I actually have to say it, but common sense isn't common anymore. So I have to say this. The way that we socialize and the way that we have our information delivered is not the same the way it was in 1993 and earlier. Everything was very carefully communicated, and it was more easily contained the way people wanted it to be contained. So the messages were contained the way that the messages wanted to be delivered to the public. So a lot of this could have been something that was not easily as known, right? So, that's another point that I want to touch on is, the rich elite, right? People, or let's just say the wealthy people, the wealthy communities, they don't necessarily know what each other are doing, right? Like, even today, when we have social media and easy socialization, like, we still don't know what other people are doing behind closed doors. Like, I could know somebody right now who I think is just completely normal. And, the next day they can make a headline that they did something crazy and I would have no idea, right? Because there's always some sort of concealment when it comes to people and their activities behind closed doors. So what makes us think that every single person that could have known or could have been associated with Jeffrey was doing something nefarious, right? I just, I lend a little grace to people just being empathetic, that some people just genuinely don't know what is going on behind closed doors. So I'm just lending that grace, right? And again, like I said, we have to consider that there were things that may have not been known. Like, for instance, the name of that express, the L Express, maybe it wasn't as known at that time. Maybe it wasn't even a concept, the concept of a name at that time. So who knows? But, he's saying, like, we had no idea. It was 30 years ago. And then he's going to call for transparency, which I feel like is it is an important aspect to this conversation.
Should be released. And we should
go back a little bit.
That all of this information should be released. And we should get real answers on what happened to Jeffrey Epstein and any of the high-level political people that he was involved with. All of that should be open to the public. It should be absolutely transparent. And, I don't see why any of those records would have any redactions in them. Why would we be hiding that from the American public?
Well, you weren't ever on.
Okay, so I feel that is also important. He mentions that transparency is very important in all this. He would like transparency. So, and that's actually something that I always mention, whenever For instance, for example, when people don't want to comment on a story, they don't want to comment on certain details. To me personally, unless because it's involving litigation or some sort of, court activity, then I understand why nobody would want to comment on something like this, or, something relative. But if somebody has nothing to hide, is the basic idea. If you have nothing to hide, you would have no problem with transparency, which he has what seems to be no problem with transparency. He's saying that everything should be made public. Everything should be made known, including the people that Jeffrey was involved with, the high level people, the politicians, things like this, right? So he is actually calling for transparency, which this is my personal opinion. Okay. I think that is an important aspect to all this, truthful and transparent people are not afraid of that. They're not afraid of the truth, and they welcome any sort of questioning or investigation, should it be a true and fair one, right? So I think that is actually important, and this comes in very interesting timing, because Judge Durbin, I forget his first name, but Judge Durbin actually, I think is like a Minnesota judge. I could be wrong. Anyway, he blocked a request for the logs to be made transparent, right? So that to me is something that's very interesting. I look at that and I look at it sideways. Why are you trying to block transparency? Why are you trying to block information that should be delivered to the public, right? So things like that. So that is when he's a judge and he blocked the request for the logs to be made public. So things like that make me question more than somebody who's calling for transparency. But again, I could be completely wrong about my opinion. I just think that, he's kind of forthcoming and hey, look, I knew this guy. I knew him. Flew for this reason or whatever. The only thing that I question is if, any of this was known in 1993, such as the name of the jet, the name of the express, and if any of the other activities were communicated. Now, if it is ever put out there that there were some conversations of these things happening back in 1993 and they still proceeded to be friends and fly and all these things, then we're walking into some murky territory, and that's where I would say, okay, this is a strange, and we got to look at this sideways. So anyway, guys, let me know what your comments, what your assessment of this is. I know it's just like a little bitty clip, but I just wanted to give you guys, some insight about this. I was definitely, I was shocked. Okay. When I saw this, and it's not usual for me to be shocked about something like this, but I don't know why I was so shocked. But anyway, let me know your thoughts and assessments, your observations in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for your support. I will catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.